Visiting merchants is a pretty important part of Hogwarts legacy, with plenty of different vendors across the world peddling different gear. I visited them all, so you don't have to. So, let's explore all 25 of Hogwarts legacy's merchants, learn a bit about them and what they're selling, before deciding once and for all which are best. I'm only going to be covering actual interactive merchant stores, so whilst places like Honeydukes are shops, they don't count here, as we can't actually shop at them. If you've been enjoying my Hogwarts Legacy content thus far, then don't forget to leave a like on the video and sub to the channel for more stuff like this. Thanks, now let's get to it. Down at the bottom is Brockborough's resident cabbage seller, Eddie Thistlewood. Now, that name may sound familiar to all you Hufflepuffs out there, and from a letter in Eddie's house, I can indeed confirm that he is the sister of Helen Thistlewood, whom we travel to Azkaban with in the Hufflepuff exclusive quest. He'll first provide us with a quest to recover and deliver some chomping cabbages to the merchant Bernard Ndiaye in Feldcroft, to protect them from goblin attacks. Most Hamlet merchants, in fact, do have side quests tied to them, though the majority can still be bought from prior to completing their quest. Now, this guy is bottom of the list on account of selling literally 2 items, that being Dittany leaves at 100 galleons each and chomping cabbages at 300 each. Considering both can be grown in the Room of Requirement anyway, this guy's function as a merchant is pretty pointless, and even his quest is a through and through fetch quest. Now, I do keep hearing mention of a local troll terrorizing the hamlet. I wonder if dealing with it will open up supply routes and expand the stock. Now, luckily I know a very effective spell for dealing with trolls, so before this one notices us, let's just...
I feel awful for Alexandra, but the hamlet needed to be saved from that troll.
Cool, let's report back that the job's done before checking in with Eddie again.
There wasn't much you could have done. He was beyond training, tried to kill me the entire time.
And yes, as I suspected, that's done absolutely nothing to change Eddie's inventory. This is a recurring missed opportunity for most of the merchants. TLDR, most basic merchants in the Scottish Highlands. Next on the list, we're heading over to Upper Hogsfield and paying a visit to Claire Beaumont. She sells off the byproducts of dangerous creatures like inferi remains, spider fangs, and wolf fur. Literally 3 of the most common items that we'll pick up during plenty of fights. Perhaps in early game she can be helpful, but honestly, I'd save your galleons and just take on her side quest. Claire's brother Bardolph is missing, and she suspects that he's run off with the Ashwinders. That may not necessarily be the case though, and it's up to us to find out the truth. Whatever happens though, and however you decide to end this quest, Claire will remain a tradable merchant with the same very basic list of items. Now, one piece of praise that I will give is that I don't actually think anyone else sells Stench of the Dead. And although inferi are a pretty common enemy, you never know when you might actually just need to buy some of their byproduct. TLDR, how does she acquire her stock? Up next is Feldcroft's resident beast byproduct merchant, Bernard Ndiaye, whom I mentioned earlier. The guy is definitely one of the friendliest merchants in the game, and makes this pretty bold claim.
I sell the finest array of beast byproducts you'll find in the entire countryside.
Well, you know what, buddy? I've actually looked around the rest of the countryside, and can honestly say I've seen 2 other merchants with better products than you. Just facts, bro, that's all. He literally sells 4 very basic beast products, 3 of which you farm as part of the main beast quest. Yeah, he is again a pretty pointless merchant that you don't have to visit for trade. Something I would recommend doing though is asking him how the hamlet is doing after completing Sebastian Sallow's questline. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just say he has a very interesting take on a big event from that questline, and it might fill in some gaps for you. TLDR,
Do you have the chomping cabbages?
Next we come to one of the 2 merchants to be found in the hamlet of Arranshire. Bear in mind, both of these involve spider-related quests, which must be completed to unlock them as tradable merchants. For Edgar, we have to infiltrate a spider lair in the Forbidden Forest, defeating the mini-boss known as the Absconder. After returning Milo's heirloom to Edgar, he will become a tradable merchant. Edgar then is a clothes merchant with a strikingly sparse range of clothing. Look, I get that times have been hard, but this stock is smaller than mine after I explore 1 cave. I'd say he's a good one to sell to then, which yes he is, but so are all the other merchants. We literally sell our clothes and only our clothes to all bar for 1 vendor. So clothing merchants aren't really special on that account. The guy has a friendly and outgoing demeanor though, which scores him a little plus, but honestly we can get better gear looting 1 cave than we can trading with this guy. TLDR, not really a clothes merchant, just a guy on Facebook Marketplace getting rid of some old clothes. For this next one, we'll have to head down to the southern coast and pay a visit to the hamlet of Marrenweem. One of the houses here is a rather cozy looking place owned by the plant merchant Clifford Cromwell, a nice enough guy with yet another limited inventory. In fact, every item he sells are the exact same things we can grow in the Room of Requirements. I don't need to point out that by the time we get to this very southern part of the map as well, we should already be growing all of these things back at Hogwarts. Look, it's nice that every hamlet has a merchant, but honestly, a lot of these feel like pure filler. It's not that his stock is bad per se, it's simply pointless to us. And I kinda wish that more of these hamlet merchants actually had highly rare or unique items to sell. Maybe the seeds could have been scattered across different world merchants rather than all being buyable from Hogsmeade. As it happens though, a lot of these merchants, Clifford Cromwell included, feel like missed potential to me. TLDR, like selling grapes to a vineyard owner. Another hamlet-based merchant with no unique selling point, but at least this one is conveniently close to Hogwarts. Jalal Sehmi can be found down in Lower Hogsfield and will sell us potions. Funny, because I know a guy in Hogsmeade who sells potions too, and he sounds just like you.
I was once a lowly Hogwarts student like you. Thank you again for delivering those potions to Madame Lawang. Saved me a lot of time and trouble.
Ah, they've used the same voice actor, haven't they? Look, it's not that I have a problem with that per se, it's just that there's such a range of merchants in the world that I don't get why you'd have the same guy play two of the most similar ones. You might as well have just made Parry Pippin a travelling merchant who also maintains a base down here. Even still, this guy does show some promise, especially when he mentions a special Hogwarts discount. That's awesome, because up until now, every merchant has charged the same price, except the Hogwarts discount is apparently just the same price because he quote-unquote sells so cheaply anyway. A shame, because at least actual discounts would give some merchants competitive advantages over others. Also, his sales pitch sounds like it was written by ChatGPT.
My ingredients are all local to this area, and my potions are brewed to keep you healthy and safe.
TLDR, this video is sponsored by the finest potions and ingredients in the Scottish Highlands. Yet another potions merchant next. Fatimah Lawang is our resident potion seller down in Cambridge. Most likely, your first encounter with her is when you deliver some cargo from J. Pippin's, and it's pretty clear at this point that the two do not get along. Fatimah was once a travelling merchant, but fell in love with Cambridge on her first visit. She's now returned there, and has settled down with her little shop for the rest of time. Now, according to her pitch, she sells the best potions around. Better than Hogsmeade even. So let's take a look at her inventory and figure out what she's peddling. Potions-wise, we have Wiggenweld and, well, that's it, actually. Granted, not a bad potion, but not exactly living up to that claim of best potion seller. The most useful of her ingredients is probably Ashwinder eggs. Still fairly common in the world, but you might need some extra ones in early game. TLDR, not better than Hogsmeade. Advertisement, it's false. Returning to Arranshire now, we come to its other vendor, Crispin Dunne. You'll first meet him at the Three Broomsticks in Hogsmeade, where he'll issue the quest to deal with Arranshire's spider problem. Afterwards, he'll return to his stall here, where he sells all manner of plants. In fact, you may find his inventory pretty identical to that of Clifford Cromwell in Marrenweem, though Crispin is undoubtedly a better merchant on account of this sparrow here with a venomous tentacula growing in it. We can harvest this one for free as opposed to paying 600 galleons to Crispin. A pretty neat bonus, I think. What's more, the guy sells spider fangs, and whilst we no doubt don't need them after killing all Arranshire's spiders ourselves, it's clear that Crispin has scavenged them from the wreckage and is trying to turn the tragedy into extra profit. It's a pretty cool detail on the part of the devs, who have otherwise made these shop menus pretty generic. TLDR, only came for the free samples. One of the most friendly merchants in the game, Agnes Coffey, can be found in the southern hamlet of Bainbell. She is a clothes merchant who is only selling things at the green and blue tiers to my level 35 character. Not exactly one worth visiting for top-of-the-range stock. Still, perhaps some of these appearances may have been things that you haven't unlocked yet and like the look of. After all, we can change our appearance independently of the stats of our gear. But the biggest part about meeting Agnes is more likely the quest we receive to rescue her pet Niffler Rococo. This This involves venturing down into a nearby crypt, defeating some Ashwinders, and navigating these pretty unique sliding floor puzzles. When we return to her with her Niffler, we can choose from the classic selection of options. Returning Rococo will be rewarded and get Agnes's everlasting gratitude. But if we keep him, she'll be extremely bitter and will no longer trade with us. Not like we were missing out on much anyway, and we do get a unique Niffler. I mean, I do always find the mean quest endings quite funny, and if I'd been playing my Slytherin character, then no doubt I'd have chosen that one. But I mean, come on, she's distraught enough as it is, let's give her a Niffler back. TLDR, it's all fun and games until we keep the Niffler. Even further down the coast, the furthest settlement from Hogwarts is the hamlet of Cragcroft, a quaint little place surrounded by ocean and home to Bella Navarro, the best potion merchant outside of Hogsmeade. She'll sell us some useful ingredients like Ashwinder eggs and troll bogies, as well as a few potions. But let's be honest, by the time we get down here, we'll most certainly be self-sufficient in producing all of these things. However, I'd still recommend selling off our stuff to her, as she's clearly one of the nicest merchants in the entire game.
Aren't you sweet? I'll be happy to take this off your hands.
I mean, she called me sweet when I sold off some crappy clothes to her, and it was nice to feel appreciated. It's a common staple of games like this to be the most important person in the world and feel undervalued by everyone. Turns out, even scripted kindness does actually go a long way. Also, her outdoor stall is definitely one of the fanciest and most witchy looking, and she works hard and gathers many of her ingredients by herself. TLDR, generic merchant, but genuinely nice person. Before we get on to the more unique merchants, let's address someone who I've really struggled to place here. Ollivanders is our resident wand seller and easily the most famous merchant name in the Wizarding World fandom. Whilst classed as a merchant on the Hogsmeade map, Ollivander doesn't really serve much purpose outside of story missions. We buy our wand from him, obviously, which can't be changed aside from the customizable handle thereafter. Then he crops up again for Ravenclaws during their unique quest, and also later for one of the final missions. We can't access any kind of merchant inventory outside of this, and can't even sell off gear to him. Therefore, whilst Ollivander does place on this list as a merchant with a crucial part to the story, he's pretty useless as an actual merchant, but is very famous and well known and therefore gets a middling range on the list. TLDR, the wand chooses the wizard, and this guy just makes the wands. Next few are going to be the travelling merchants, people who crop up in several places around an area and do actually have some unique stuff to sell. First up, there's Rohan Prakash, found down in the southern part of the map, both at Marrenweem Bridge and just west of Cragcroft. He's running the travelling stall for his father, who's recently fallen ill, but may yet recover. Just like all of the travelling merchants, his base stock is a few ingredients, all the combat plants, and a selection of potions. But the main reason to visit him is obviously the unique Aeromancer broom. All the brooms in this game fly at the same speed, though it's definitely worth completing your collection and buying every unique broom, just so you've got a nice range of choice and for those completionist vibes. TLDR, 5th year calls for broomstick, and Rohan shall answer. Now, the next travelling merchant can be found in the region of Feldcroft, near Rookwood Castle, the South Sea Battle Arena, and the northern South Sea Bog. Priya Treadwell is the wife of Nora Treadwell, who introduces us to the Merlin Trials. We can actually talk with her about our mutual acquaintance, and it makes the Wizarding world feel like a much more closely knit community. Much like Rohan, she sells literally the same inventory, but with the family antique broom instead of the Aeromancer. Again, worth a visit if you mean to complete your broom collection. TLDR, lady who sells Wicked Witch broom. Now, Arn is another travelling merchant, but can only be found selling gear in one place. Before we can buy from him though, we have to complete his quest Carted Away, which unlocks by finding him in Lower Hogsfield. It involves freeing his stolen carts from a goblin camp, which will automatically return to him. Afterwards, he can be found just south of Lower Hogsfield with the same inventory as Priya and Rohan, but a much better broom in my opinion. The Silver Arrow is my number 3 broomstick in this game, and if you want more info on that, you can find it in my broomsticks ranked video. TLDR, not all goblins are Ranrock's followers. The final travelling merchant sits higher than the rest on account of a few things. Leopold Babcocke is located in the region north of Hogwarts, either at the East North Ford Bog, Hogsmeade Station, or East Hogsmeade Valley. Now, while sporting the same base inventory as the others, he has quite a few more of each item in stock. Therefore, if for whatever reason you wanted to stock up on travelling merchant items, you could do so in less visits when going to Leopold. Oh, and he also sells the Sky Scythe broom, one of the most expensive at 5,000 galleons, but easily one of the nicest looking. TLDR, first traveling merchant you'll probably meet, and easily the best of the four. Let's go back to the Hamlet merchants for a second, to meet a guy with a genuinely unique selling point. Padraic Haggarty is the resident merchant of Irondale, and is in the business of selling animal byproducts. Unlike our friend Bernard over in Feldcroft though, this guy actually has some really high quality stuff. Unicorn hair, graphorn horns, and even phoenix feathers are all on sale here. Considering phoenix feathers aren't even sold in Hogsmeade, that's a pretty strong claim to fame. Though bear in mind, you'll eventually get a real phoenix, whom you can actually farm feathers from for free, rather than forking out 700 galleons each time. In fact, it'd be really cool if you could sell animal products in reverse, since it'd give the beasts an entirely new and lucrative avenue. Alas though, 'tis only clothes that we can sell to this man, despite the fact that this clearly isn't his trade. He also has one of the more interesting merchant quests involving tracking down a thief who stole his family heirloom. It's not particularly long, but it does have some cool twists, and I'd recommend playing through it. Padraic will be a lot friendlier to us upon its completion, but we still won't get a discount, unfortunately. TLDR, rough around the edges, but seems like a nice enough guy. Following straight on from Padraic though, Indira Wolff sports an identical inventory and is based in Pitt-upon-Ford in the northern Forbidden Forest. Something I appreciate about her is that she doesn't oversell herself when describing her store. Too many of these guys have claimed to have the finest stuff, better than Hogsmeade, only to turn out to be truly disappointing. Indira, however, may not be quite as good as Hogsmeade, but a phoenix feather is once again something that Hogsmeade doesn't have. She's taken over the store from her late father, and whilst clearly a little overwhelmed, appears genuinely passionate about running it properly. One thing I do want to flag up about both these merchants though is how exactly they get their stock. I mean, are we honestly supposed to just look at these animal byproduct merchants and assume that they aren't in league with any poachers? How do they get their supplies? And who do the poachers sell to if not people like this? Honestly, the whole animal trade element in this game seems way too black and white, and something a lot of people have noticed is this unspoken hypocrisy which we have when it comes to poaching. Sure, capturing the animals and placing them out of harm's way in the vivariums is one thing, but selling them on for profit to a completely unknown destination, I mean, isn't that exactly what the poachers are doing? Sure, they may treat the animals worse at the time of having them, but like, I don't know what's going to happen to them once I sell them. And with these merchants, have they really farmed all their supplies ethically and sustainably? Either way, you're probably better off just farming from the vivariums, but even still, it's cool these guys exist in the world, and their stock is indeed impressive. TLDR, humble and kind merchant who may be in league with an illegal animal trading ring. As far as merchants go on the whole though, Hogsmeade really is the place to be for the best trade, and that's exactly where all the remaining merchants are based. Gladrags Wizardwear is our resident clothing merchant, and the only one in the game to sell decently leveled clothing. When visiting at level 35, I actually found some gear better than what I was currently wearing, and plenty of legendary items. Thing is though, each piece of legendary gear costs us 500 galleons, and I don't know about you, but finding legendary gear out in the world is a very common occurrence for me. Still, much like Agnes Coffey from earlier, there may yet be some cosmetics which you like the look of here. Plus, the guy gives you some free robes for defending Hogsmeade from a troll attack, which is pretty nice of him, not gonna lie. TLDR, basically the Kingsman Tailors of the wizarding world. Next up is a pretty easy one to miss, since there's no main quest that ever leads us here. Madam Snelling's Tress Emporium though is the place to go if we want to change our appearance. It's a great addition to the game and stops us from being stuck with all our choices from the character creation menu. Now, whilst we can't change everything, obviously, the things we can alter are hairstyle, hair colour, scars, complexion, eyebrows, and eye colour. And all it costs is a very, very cheap 20 galleons each time for everything. I mean, sure, it doesn't fulfill any gameplay purpose per se, we can't sell gear here or anything like that, but it's nonetheless nice to sometimes change up our style in a way that feels canonically accurate in this magical world. TLDR, I want to change my appearance. Now we get on to the most important merchants in the entire game. All of these last ones either sell or can be sold items which can't be traded anywhere else, and at number 6 here I'm placing the Magic Neep, our local gardening retailer in the business of selling some nice non-deadly plants which are crucial for potion ingredients. Much like the merchants of the wider world, we can buy ready-grown ingredients in their usable form, but much more importantly, we can buy their seeds and grow them ourselves for free on a self-perpetuating cycle in the Room of Requirement. This is obviously the most sustainable way to farm ingredients in this game, and none of it is possible without first visiting this store. Shrivel figs, mallowsweet, fluxweed, and more can only be grown with seeds from here. Not to mention the fact that we can also buy fertilizer, which increases a station's output by 1. Not really worth wasting your money on this though, just buy the dung composter from Tomes and Scrolls, which we'll get to soon. TLDR, go to store for non-deadly seeds. Our go-to store for deadly seeds, though, is of course Dogweed and Deathcap. Inconveniently placed on the very outskirts of Hogsmeade, I can only imagine this was done to keep the tentaculars, cabbages, and mandrakes away from the innocent townsfolk. Now, while seeds here certainly don't come cheap, in fact, venomous tentaculars are a whopping 1,050 galleons for the seeds, it's certainly cheaper in the long run to buy and farm these plants sustainably than to simply keep buying the ready-to-use products. Again, I wish we could sell our 3 combat plants back to merchants across the world, and I wish there were varying prices on different items. It would give a bunch of these wider world merchants way more reasons to be visited. But alas, it's not really worth visiting many, if any, of the ones outside Hogsmeade, apart from to complete their side quests. Dogweed and Deathcap, though, is indeed a useful one to pay a visit to if you're planning on utilizing those combat plants a whole bunch. I cover them in further detail in my potions and plants ranked video. TLDR, be careful with this one, the products on sale may just eat you. The first happy memory that sprang to mind for Harry Potter was the first time he rode a broom, and indeed I can only imagine that flying a broom in real life would be an exceptionally liberating experience. That's why you shouldn't hesitate to get down to Sprintwitches and buy your very own. Albie Weeks has 5 brooms on sale, all for 600 galleons each, a very reasonable price when we compare it to the travelling merchant brooms. There's also an ongoing set of quests to actually improve our broom's speed by completing time-trialed racing events. Each of these 3 quests will end with an upgrade becoming available that boosts the speed of our broom. So not only does Albie sell us our first broom, he continues to improve the broomstick experience for a while thereafter. He's a genuinely nice and passionate guy with an obvious love for broom science. I mean magic. Only issue with this place then is once we've bought all the brooms and upgrades, the store no longer serves an ongoing purpose, though can still be used to pawn off our crap. TLDR, look at my broomstick is amazing. No, stop it, I didn't mean it like that. Bruden Peck is the only merchant in the game whom we can sell something other than clothing to. Indeed, this is the place to go to sell off all of those spare beasts we captured who simply don't fit in the vivariums. Again, like I said, the morality on this front is a little grey and quite vague, but the owner seems nice enough, and she does these kind of laughing snort noises, which obviously an evil, ingenuine person would never do, so I think we can trust her.
Which they used to literally do.
At 120 galleons per beast then, this becomes one of the most bottomless and versatile money farms in the game. Are we now any better than poachers though? Probably not. Does the game suggest that we are? Of course it does. Whatever the case though, it's a huge unique selling point above all the other stores, and makes Bruden Peck a recurring place to visit for any budding beast collectors or entrepreneurs. For more info on beasts in general, check out my Beasts Ranked video. TLDR, Snorty Lady, sell all the animal things. I've talked a lot about potions and ingredients in this video and how growing them is a vastly cheaper and more efficient method than buying them from merchants. But do you know what we need first before we can grow or brew anything? That's right, spellcrafts. And where else can we acquire such things other than from Thomas Brown's Tomes and Scrolls? This place offers a huge range of conjurations that can be placed in the Room of Requirements. Potion stations, potting stations, beast feeders, and the list goes on. None of this comes cheap though, so fair warning, this store will likely be your biggest money sink in the game, despite the fact that each item is unique and only needs buying once. Honestly, so many of these things are essential. Large pots are needed for fluxweed and venomous tentaculi, whilst hopping pots, dung composters, and shopping stations can provide bonuses to everything potions related. And sure, much like Albie Weeks, this store can surpass its usefulness once we've bought everything, but that's gonna take a little while longer due to the sheer quantity of spellcrafts on offer. Seriously, if you're early or midway into a playthrough, I'd suggest keeping some money behind for whenever you may need to buy a new spellcraft. TLDR, an essential cog in the clockwork of self-sufficiency. But finally, at number 1 is a store which I value not only for its supply, but for the sheer convenience of where exactly it's placed. J. Pippin's Potions is less than a stone's throw away from this fast travel point in Hogsmeade, and truly, whenever I was overflowing with gear to sell off, I would simply fast travel to here, run inside, and pawn off anything worse than what I had. All merchants buy at the same price, and this is easily one of the quickest to access in the game. But let's talk about the store's contents. For starters, Parry Pippin sells a large range of potions and ingredients with a much larger stock than other wider world merchants. More importantly though, this is where we buy our potion recipes, which can make buying potions themselves redundant, though it does up our needs to gather more ingredients. After a few visits, Pippin will issue this quest to deliver some potions to Fatimah Lawang, whom we covered earlier, claiming he doesn't want to deal with her himself, and that we'll get to keep any delivery commission. Does Pippin show his gratitude by offering a discount after that? Of course he doesn't, but he does thank us for doing the work every time we see him thereafter.
Thank you again for delivering those potions to Madame Lawang.
So, if you want to be set up for full potion self-sufficiency, or else just drop off an overflowing inventory of gear, then Parry Pippin is definitely the best merchant for you to pay a visit to. TLDR, the top of my list. But let me know your thoughts on the merchants in Hogwarts Legacy. Do you also think the trading mechanic is overly shallow in this game? And more importantly, did I miss any merchants? Either way, I hope this video was helpful in learning about each of the merchants in this game. Basically, a great many of them are annoyingly not worth visiting for trade alone, but they are worth visiting for some cool dialogue and some interesting quests. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Sam Bram, and I'll see you very soon in another video.